Hey!
Hey!
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday evening Meet the Atheists segment. Gives me great pleasure to welcome Secular Rarity. All you guys know him from all the shows all over the internet. Welcome. Very nice to
Hey!
have you.
Thanks, man. I'm really excited to be here. Like I was saying just before we went live, man. It's kind of funny for me because I've been watching you and your channel for a while now, and so getting to come on here and hang out here with y'all and talk to some of your audience is great for me. So yeah, I'm glad that y'all are doing what you do on a regular basis because it's this type of work that's really deeply important, honestly. And we get real focused on what the Christian nationalists are doing in the US South and all that. And don't get me wrong, it's deeply important. I know living there, but there's such a huge fight that needs to be had worldwide, unfortunately, still. And we just don't put as much focus on that, So I really appreciate what y'all do here, man. It's a big deal. So
Amazing. Yeah. So let's dive right into it. Did you tell us a little bit about your religious background? Did you grow up in a religion where, was it a matter of birth for you? I was born into a religion. I didn't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah. I was born into the Methodist religion when I was a baby. That was the church that my parents were going to. They divorced fairly quickly, after my brother and I were born. So they'd been together for a while, and then they had 2 kids for a few years, and they were like, But my mom really wanted to raise us in the Methodist church. So we found a church. We went to it. I was really the most active member for a while, and mainly the reason was because I played music. I played drums, or I played handbells. And so I did that for a good couple of years after pretty much the entire rest of my family stopped going. But I was also the first person to come out in my family as, hey, I don't believe any of this stuff, really. It'd be a few years after that I'd start telling my family hey, I'm actually one of those atheist folk. So yeah, it was definitely a part of my upbringing. But when it comes to the fundamentalism or the purity culture stuff, or you can't read, Harry Potter books or whatever, none of that was really the case where I was. But I was on the fringes of it because every other one of my friends pretty much was in a more strict church setting. But it gave me a really interesting insight because it's now, especially when I hear people talk about, this is what the Bible says, or this is what God wants. I can just kind of put myself in back in that situation and be like, gosh, I don't feel that way. You seem to be really, really upset about, lesbians right now, man. And you seem to be basing that on the Bible. And I remember Jesus talking a lot more about love than he did about condemning people. So it's fun to kind of role play back in that mindset. But yeah. Methodists, we're a fun bunch, sort of, I guess. Mainly because the Methodists are generally considered one of the more chill denominations out there. Although currently the church is splitting over whether or not they should be just the bare minimum of compassionate to the LGBTQ community. So that's really interesting to watch. You've got half of the church that's like, hey, I think it's okay if queer people come to church. And then the other half is like, I think we should put them in jail. That's a bit hyperbolic, but it's not far off. So it's interesting. But yeah, Methodists, that was fun. Mostly I stayed in for the music. And then, a couple of years would go by and I'd start, watching all the theist debates, all the classics and the Hitchens and, so forth. And then one day I just I reached out to Ethan Michael over at Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist. Great dude, great channel. We just did a fundraiser the other day for the Secular Student Alliance. It was awesome. And next thing I know, I'm helping out with a bunch of channels, and slowly people start putting my dumb face on screen. So here we are.
It's strange, yeah. Now that you mention it, you did. It's almost like a little bit of mold in your fridge. You know, you leave it for a while, and then the whole fridge.
That's exactly. That is probably the best description somebody has said yet of like my YouTube career, I guess, if that's what you call it. I love that. I'm gonna start using that regularly. I am like mold in your fridge. I just slowly take over. Yeah. I think that's fair.
Amazing. Here's Tasha now. I'm going to let Tasha in as well.
Hey.
Hello. What is your real name, or is it secret?
Oh, it's not. I'm public about it. You can call me Elliot as well. So Elliot, Secular Rarity, SR, Hey Dickhead, all of those things actually I respond to. Yeah.
Okay. You know, I'm a very conservative 50-year-old, formerly reformed mom. So to call somebody, what did you say? Something dickhead? Do you know that I was in my 20s. I was so conservative that I think I was 22 when I realized what a condom was, and I think I was 25 when I watched a movie and I realized that dick was not only a name, that it referred to a piece of human anatomy. So I'm that lady.
Well, I just want to say, I think the first 10 minutes of this interview are going smashingly. I mean, honestly, at this point, we've said dick like 6 times. I think we're killing it. This is a success for me. It doesn't matter where we go from here.
Well, you know, Dean and I are both Afrikaans speaking. So I don't know what you know about Afrikaans. It's a derivative of Dutch. But I have to, since we're talking about dicks, you know, I also didn't know what balls were. And it's so funny because I grew up with 3 baby brothers and I still didn't know what balls were. You see, that's the kind of, I grew up in a good Christian home. I changed their nappies, but I didn't know what balls were. So when I was about 17, and I mean, English is my second language. So we were on the beach at a beautiful place. It's not beautiful anymore because it's been so overused. Sodwana Bay. It's it used to be one of the most beautiful, pristine coral reefs in the world, in fact. And so we were on holiday. We used to go camping there. And I was a sexy 17-year-old many moons ago in my imagination, I suppose. And there were some guys from Cape Town University, and they were English speaking, and they must have noticed me because there weren't many girls on the beach, and they were playing volleyball. And they approached me. They said, "Would you like to come and play volleyball with us?" And being Afrikaans and not really good at English, especially not colloquial English, I said, "Oh no, thank you. I'm not good with balls." And the one guy said, "We just wanted you to play volleyball." And they were laughing. And I was like, "What the hell are you laughing about? What's so funny about what?" And about 2 years later, I sat in the movies and some gangster movie, and somebody said balls, and the audience was laughing. And I said, "So what are balls? Why is it so funny? It's balls. It's butter, you know." And then the person who was with me said, "You know, that's actually, you know what? So I'm a bit slow.
That's all right. It's good experience is what it is. It's a funny story that you can tell later. That's just enjoyable, honestly. Like, and you know, that's a great way to start a conversation with somebody. It's like, "Hey, look, I'm just not good at balls. Like, I just can't. I just have trouble with it." It's like, you know what? That's good to know. I like to know that right up front. You know.
You heard it here. You heard it first here, folks. Take it to your corporate meetings next.
So, Dean, I'm sorry I'm late, and I know that I have this terrible habit of taking over, but I don't know what you've been talking. So I was cooking. That's why I was late,
That's
because I do have a husband and I have to keep him satisfied, be it with or without using or making use or entertaining his balls. So no meatballs tonight. But yes. So obviously, I have a husband and I'm a cis woman, but I just heard something about the church and LGBTQ people. So, what do you identify as, Elliot?
Yeah, I'm cis, mostly straight is normally the label I take, just because I kind of feel like everybody's a little bit more wiggly than they normally admit to. Like, but yeah, cis het, white dude. I am polyamorous as well. But yeah, other than that, it's like not that's about it. You know, atheist, agnostic, free thinker, humanist. There's a bunch of different labels, but yeah, in general, like I guess the coolest thing is I'm poly, which that's fun. I guess.
Like that.
But yeah.
You know,
here in South Africa, we just call that being greedy.
That's fair.
I actually think, talking about labels and I don't know what I feel about labels, but all the labels that you mentioned, I think we should coin a new term, polylabelous, which means don't you like that? I mean, why do we have to go with one label? Let's just go with polylabelous.
Yeah.
We just label ourselves in any way we want to, and
I tend to, just depending on the exact situation too. Like I might offer a different label to people. Like sometimes it's easier to tell people like, hey, I'm in an open relationship as opposed to I'm in a polyamorous relationship. Or sometimes it's just easier to just tell people just, hey, I'm straight, and just like move on with it and not try to provide any nuance or anything. Like when I'm out walking around, in my casual daily life, it's more often the case that I'll tell somebody I'm just a non-believer or non-religious than specifically try to go into a discussion about what's the differences between atheism, agnosticism, like what's this theological non-cognitivism, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, yeah, like when I'm standing there at the grocery store checkout line, I'm not going to go into a 10-minute discussion about etymology of words and stuff. So it's easier to just be like, no, I don't really go to church or care much about Jesus. Have a good one. Like,
so
you got to pick your battles. I love that
right.
approach to life.
That's
You've got to pick your battles.
That's right. I'm not changing any minds. Standing here at the ticket line for some soccer game or something. Nobody's gonna turn around and just be like, oh my gosh, you know what? The Catholic Church is a corrupt institution. We should take it down. Yeah, like that's never gonna happen. It's just gonna be like, hey man,
the first thing we should do is we should tax those.
Oh my gosh, it's the easiest. It's the easiest. I think maybe this is a bit far on my side here, and I'm willing to take that. I appreciate good compassionate criticism, and when I can learn, I'm always happy to do it. But I really think that if an institution actively abuses children for decades and hides the people who do that from criminal prosecution, I think at the very least they should pay taxes. I mean, maybe that's a bit too far, but like, for fuck's sake, I'm sorry, I don't know if I could say that, but I'm sorry, but yeah, like it's just crazy to me. I just why in the world are we still having this discussion? They have their own country. Like they should be able to pay taxes. They should be able to pay taxes.
They've been getting a free ride for way too long.
Dean, do you want to ask something? And maybe I want to ask a question that maybe you've asked, but do you want? Can I go ahead? I don't want to take over.
Yeah, go for it, Dasha. Go for it.
So, Elliot, how did you decide on your YouTube name or your whatever?
Yeah. I call it. I now call it my nom de internet. So because
love that.
thank you. I thank you. Not everybody does, honestly. There's been a handful of times like I've said that with like a group of like 10 or 12 people and nobody responded whatsoever. And I was like, oh, like nom de plume, nom de internet. Okay, whatever. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. It's like if you have to explain a joke, it's not as funny. But
absolutely.
So a couple years ago, when I first started like stepping into the online space and doing stuff, the way I actually got involved was behind the scenes. So there's been about 2 years worth of me helping out and working with a bunch of different channels and content creators, where my face was never on camera. Nobody knew who I was or anything, which was awesome. Like I love doing that. I'm thrilled to be able to participate in so many different awesome communities today still, which is, I just love it. That's what I love doing, and so I reached out to this guy, Ethan Michael, and because at the end of one of his shows, he said, look, we just need somebody to help out behind the scenes a little bit, if anybody would like to volunteer, please, call me. And so I hit him up and I said, man, I'd really love to help out. I love what you're doing here. How can I help? And the first thing that he said was, man, you got to join this Facebook group, you got to join this Facebook Messenger chain, because that's how I connect to all my people. That's how I talk to them. And I said to him, hey, I don't actually have a Facebook. So I'm 28 years old, and so I'm a young feller still. And
what unholy blasphemy!
Are you saying that we're old?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not in the slightest. Just that it makes more sense when you hear the story like this. So when I was in high school, when I was between that like 13 to 18 ages, Facebook had really just started, right? And so everybody was on Facebook. Everybody told me to get a Facebook. I finally, after a couple of years, got a Facebook. I used it for all of like 2 years, just a personal thing, just chatting it up with buddies, whatever. And then I just completely stepped off of social media for the next 10 years. So basically,
what did you do when you stepped off of social media? I mean, did you go to heaven or did you go to hell and come back, or what?
No, I just found myself in this weird kind of nebulous space where like I did exist in the real world, but nobody knew it, because nobody had any way to connect with me on Facebook or Twitter or anything. And so for literally a full decade of my life, I just told people like, hey, if you want to contact me, you're just going to have to like text me or send me an email or something, because you can't find me on Facebook. Like you can't message me that way, which was great. Honestly, I loved that. But what happened in that 10 years, obviously, I think, we all kind of recognize that the last 10 years for social media, has just taken over the world, in various formats. And long story short is I hadn't done Facebook or social media stuff for a decade. And Ethan was like, hey man, if you want to help out, you got to have a Facebook. And I was like, yeah, I need one. That's probably a good idea. I need to come up with a name, I need to, because I don't want it to be my personal account in the sense of like me just telling people about like what meals I cooked or when I went to the bathroom last or whatever. Like that didn't interest me. And so I wanted to come up with something that, maybe had atheist in it or rationality or skeptic or just something in that vein. And the name that the word that I settled on was secular. I liked it. I thought it said a good message. And so honestly, I just sat down for like an hour and was just coming up with different combinations. And finally, I just like the way Secular Rarity sounds. And I was like, awesome, man, that works for me. And so now it's like, yeah, if you go out there and you look up Secular Rarity on pretty much all the social media stuff, except Threads. I'll be honest. I don't have Threads. I don't know if I'm going to get it. I just, cause I don't know if I want another social media thing, right? I already have trouble keeping up with TikTok. So it's like, I don't know. Just another one seems like it adds more pressure and anxiety to me than I need. But yeah, I don't, all I talk about pretty much online, if you go to my Twitter or Facebook or whatever, is just going to be when I'm doing stuff like this. It's all focused on this stuff, which is good. It's great for me. That's what I prefer, and it keeps me from, you know, falling down a bunch of rabbit holes and yelling at people or you know, people stalking me, I guess, which I don't know. If you want to stalk me, I guess it's fine. You're not going to enjoy it very much. It's pretty boring. Like, I'm going to go get groceries when I'm done here. So it's like, I guess if you want to see how many oranges I buy, that's cool. But yeah,
it all depends on the size of your balls.
That's true. That's true. They've got they grow them big these days, those oranges.
So, tell us a little bit about your, you know, transition away from religion. You know, there's a lot of different, you know, we hear a lot of different stories from different members, and you know, for some people, it's like a literal come to Jesus moment. You know, like it happens in a flash.
Right.
And then for other people, it is, for the majority of people, I should say, rather, it's a very slow, arduous process of unpacking shit off the wagon and leaving it along the road as you go.
Yeah.
And only to find right at the end of the road that the wagon is actually light and very empty. You know, what was that journey like for you?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things that I had internalized as a believer were those thought stopping techniques that we often hear from Christian apologists, right? Like whenever I hear a believer these days tell me that, you know, God's ways are just higher than ours, you know, we as fallible beings could never possibly understand the perfect mind of this infallible eternal. Oh my goodness, it's so overwhelming. It's not, though. What it is specifically a response designed to prevent you from going further with your thought process. And that's where I was. And that's what, you know, honestly, to this day is something that still kind of, you know, makes me giggle a little bit, because I hear some of these believers who are so intent on finding this very crucial piece of evidence, you know, this incredibly just overwhelmingly powerful piece of data that is going to make all the atheists out there come to Jesus. Because what's funny about that to me is, when I was a believer, I would have said that person didn't have enough faith. I would say that person just wasn't secure in their belief in God, because for me, none of that stuff ever mattered, right? Like, I wasn't raised young earth creationist. Nobody ever said to me like, hey, dinosaurs weren't real, man. Like, none of that stuff. But when I heard that stuff from other Christians, it was ridiculous to me. I'm like, why are you wasting your time looking for Noah's Ark? God already explained this to us. You don't need any more. You going around digging throughout all these different countries is just proving that you don't actually have enough faith. And you need to do better, believer. You need to accept God's message, you know? And so for me, one of the biggest things was just actually stepping into a place where I allowed myself to recognize there are other options out there. There are other answers. And one of the biggest paths that took me, you know, out of religion was looking more into morality. Because for a very, very long time, it was like, well, how we understand goodness, right? How we understand what actions we should take as you know, people in society is all based on God. And there's no other constructions out there. And so getting to a place where, you know, now I'm just reading through, you know, Immanuel Kant's stuff and going like, wow, I don't know, maybe this has some merit, you know, reading through utilitarian stuff and just going, wow, I don't know, man, maybe this has some value to it. Recognizing that there were other pathways to get to answers in that vein was really eye-opening for me. And it made me start going, okay, for a long time, man, you had said there was no other answer than going through God when it came to morality. And now you've just shown yourself that that's not true. What else is out there that's like that? And from there, I just started listening more and more to various speakers, going and researching various things. Found myself on a handful of different wonderful YouTube channels that just have scholars and really intense deep dives. And from there it was like, look, man, you didn't have any answer to any of this stuff. All of it was thought stopping techniques. And that's why I fight so hard against like that ambiguous kind of vague BS these days. Like when your explanation and definition of God is essentially the same as the concept of love, your God doesn't exist. Love does, because you've done absolutely nothing to add to the conversation. If I can literally swap out the universe with your God and there's no difference, then your God is not real, and that's okay. Like you have something much more powerful in your tool belt now, which is the actual world around us. So,
but I've had a personal experience.
Sure.
I've had a personal experience.
Yeah. And so
I prayed to Jesus and I found my car keys.
Yeah. And all the Hindus out there prayed to Shiva and got their stuff, and all the Buddhists and all the everybody else got their thing too. Like, come on, what makes your magic man better than the rest of them? Like,
how old were you when you went through this process?
Yeah, I stayed in the church playing in the music aspect until I was about like 18-ish. And then for the next couple of years, I would have told people that I was maybe agnostic. I definitely would have said, I'm not a Christian. But it wouldn't be until probably, 21-ish, 22-ish that I really started saying like, okay, I'm an atheist. Like that's my camp. That's where I stand. Like I this label fits me better than a lot of others. And then, 3-ish years ago, I guess at this point, maybe a little more. That was when I started actually reaching out to people and engaging in live content and stuff like this, and working with a bunch of channels. And and in that time, I've gotten to do a whole bunch of stuff. Honestly, it's amazing. I'm thrilled by it. And I do stuff online as well as in person too. So I just recently, helped put together our first event for this in-person discussion between atheists and theists. We're doing it every month now in my area. It's amazing. I'm thrilled about it. So we had a great turnout, and we're looking forward to doing one again in August. So we've already got the August and the September scheduled and ready to go, and we'll be doing it every month as long as we can, and just trying to get people in the Bible Belt South here in the U.S. to at least listen, to somebody with a differing opinion, because I think we're in that space where that is still such a necessary thing. And so, maybe one day we can, change it into lectures about why young earth creationism is wrong. Maybe that'd be great. But for the time being, we're just getting together and having good conversation where we can show people, look, we have differing views, but we can come together to try to, hash those out and, bounce ideas off of each other and come to the most correct. So slow process, but it's a good one, man. And again, like I get to hang out on cool channels like this all the time now, which is great.
I
have a theory that I want to run past you. I just want to throw this at the wall and see what sticks. Okay, so I have this theory that the closer you get to the equator, the higher the probability of extreme religiosity is in a population. And it's strange. I mean, like your country, for example, is a prime example where the further south you go, the hotter the head gets. What are your thoughts on this? Because it seems to be a global phenomenon.
Yeah, there is. Honestly, you can just take the tropics and just, go all the way around the world, and you will find that a bunch of countries that sit in that band do follow that pattern. I don't know if it's a I don't know if it's just a response to kind of the general climate and so forth. It sure could be. We do see religiosity on the rise in areas when there is instability, when there is poor economics and stuff. And also, you know, it's fair to say that that band of the world has also received a lot of crap over the years, right? In a good handful of different ways, both internally and externally, right? Colonization as well as just political infighting and so forth. So I think it could be a combination of the two. I really do think as we see the next few decades play out, we are going to see a lot more problematic and you know very tense times for a lot of peoples around the world in places that are affected by climate change hardcore. Honestly, we're seeing it already in you know a good handful of Western, you know, more industrialized countries and stuff, right? Like right now we've got we've got a handful of different places where they're just flat out telling people, look, you're not allowed to work outside from the hours of noon to 5 p.m. because it is just getting so hot that workers are passing out. Yeah. And I think that is going to unfortunately lead to some areas of the world where we just have an intense rise in the religious, and in part because of the same playbook that they've used for you know millennium, which is, hey, all this bad stuff is because you're a bad person inherently and you need to come worship my magic man and he'll fix it. And the problem is that, you know, when things are going better, that argument sounds way silly, but when things are going really bad, that argument sounds a lot better. And it's frustrating that that's the case, you know. And that's why, honestly, at the end of the day, for me, it's more about critical thinking. It's more about skepticism than it is about like making atheists. I want to normalize atheism. I want people to be comfortable with the fact that, hey, there are people out there that have differing opinions than me, and they're just regular people. Like they don't deserve to be criminalized or beaten or anything, you know, because of that. But like if somebody said to me, hey, is your goal making the world, you know, atheist? Well, not really. I think that's a byproduct of what my goal is. My goal is critical thinking and skepticism. And when properly applied, I think that leads to atheism. You know, I think that puts you in that space, but
it puts you at risk. It puts you at risk of becoming an atheist.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, I think there is a really good connection between countries that have, you know, a handful of different problems. Again, economic as well as climate, as well as you know, just a bunch of different unfortunate, you know, historical facts that lead people to, you know, be where they are. For instance, the entire continent of South America, right, is fairly freaking religious. And the reason for that, Spain. I was going to say Spanish colonization. That's literally, you can exactly trace it back to that. So that's just, you know, that's kind of where we are, unfortunately. So
same with us here.
Oh, absolutely.
In Africa, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
But
that's,
you know,
Europe.
Yeah. You guys had the unfortunate luck of just being placed right at the bottom of the continent. And that just was a perfect place for people that wanted to go, you know, enslave and steal people and things from other places. It was like, hey, Europe, and then like, let's just stop off right here in South Africa. That's a good spot for us to just chill out for a minute. All right, now let's go back. And so it's like, it's just an unfortunate coincidence of geography, you know?
Absolutely. But I want to add to that a little bit, because what I found in my forays into religion and faith and disbelief and belief is that the most potent blend is found in these countries that were colonized, because you have in South Africa, and I can only speak to South Africa because I'm I have first-hand knowledge of all the balls that have to be kept in the air here. or not. So so you have,
I should run a ball count. Eh?
Take a shot every time we say balls.
So I do another show, Free Thought Hour, with a buddy from across the pond from you, John Richards. And last night we had Susan Gerbic on as a guest, and I told her the story about my undercover visit to what is called a traditional healer here in my local town. And I mean, it is just so scary how you have these people who were colonized at a time when they were firmly rooted in supernatural beliefs, and then poured on top of that you have the Christian colonizer, and that creates the most toxic mixture of lack of education and lack of critical thinking skills, combined with Christian indoctrination. And the same thing, I think, happened in South America. And those two evil powers, supernatural beliefs and Christianity coming together, is a very, very potent mix. I was watching a documentary about dictators the other night, and Idi Amin was one of the most scary dictators. Who I think he was more scary than Stalin and Gaddafi and many others combined. And his mother was a witch. I don't know if you know that, but
no, that's very interesting.
Yeah, Idi Amin, his father abandoned the family, and his mother was she identified as a witch in the African tradition, and they were expelled from their community, and he had a very hard life as a boy growing up. But his mom trained him in a belief in witchcraft and the supernatural. And if you look at many of the deeds that he committed as the dictator of Uganda, you can just see it's steeped in supernatural and religious beliefs. And even if you look at Stalin was he started his life as a Georgian,
He was trained.
He took all the tenets of religion, and he just twisted it. And used it to become one of the world's most frightening dictators. And what you said about critical thinking skills and skepticism is so vitally important. And as somebody who's advanced in age compared to you, you're about the age, well, you're just about 3 years older than my oldest child. So theoretically, you could have been, no, let's not go there. But but it's so nice to see a young person being an activist. And Dean and I were talking in our previous program how apathetic many atheists are. And it's something that I don't want to create atheists. I want to educate people to be critical thinkers. And as you said, if applied correctly, then chances are that being non-religious will be a natural result of being a skeptic and a critical thinker. So how active are people your age in the community, and what can we do you think, to get them more active besides lighting fires under their bums or something radical like that?
So in a lot of the people that I work with are definitely older than me. But there is a good handful of folks that are smack dab exactly my age or younger. So for instance, I mean, one of my best friends out there, Dr. Ben, I love that guy. He's amazing. He's always doing great stuff. And he and I are the exact same age. And you know, we both had very different upbringings for sure. He was in a much more strict, high control kind of setting, whereas I wasn't. But we both really started doing stuff on YouTube kind of around the same time. You know, we both hang in a lot of the same circles. And there are a good handful of folks that we both know and work with that are, again, our age or younger. I think there is we're lucky in some senses with the Gen Z and younger generations because of the interconnectedness now so much, and that, you know, being a lot due to social media, that has caused folks to become more aware of the fights and the struggles worldwide. And I think we're connecting more on those levels, which is really great. And I think we are in a good boat, because when you look at the amount of religious people or the lack thereof, for instance, you will find that that age group that, you know, anywhere between that kind of 30s to 60s, okay, there's still a heck of a lot of religious people there, you know. But when we get all the way over to the, you know, 2000s, right, 2000s onward, if you're born in that space, the likelihood of you being religious is really low compared to a lot of other groups these days. And that's phenomenal. Now, that doesn't mean that they're, you know, stepping away completely from, you know, belief in magic or the supernatural or spiritualism, whatever the hell that means. But at the very least, they don't seem to be super interested in actively supporting, you know, the big organizations, right? They're not going to the Southern Baptist Convention. They're not going to, you know, the big Mormon church or whatever, the big temple, like, and that's amazing. And I think one of the best things that we can do is to continue to highlight the atrocities that happen on a daily basis. You know, a month ago or so, I was on the Atheist Experience taking calls, and somebody called in and was like, man, I don't know, I feel like the Catholic Church gets a lot of flack. Like, I feel like
That's putting it mildly. No,
I feel like
shit,
you harp on it a bit too much. And I'm like, man, okay, I don't feel like we talk about it enough because the organization is still around and active. So and the caller was like, well, what's really the problem? What's really your issue with the Catholic Church? And I was like, well, I guess there's a lot of stuff I could point to, right? But here's a good one: $1 billion in a bank account specifically used to hide the criminality of sexual abuse by priests. Like that they've stated that. I'm not making this up. They told the public, we've got all this money in a bank account that's specifically used for this. Like, that's the problem. That's the issue. Yeah. And I think, you know, like Sinead O'Connor just recently died, and I know she converted to Islam and later on in life, but years ago, right, decades ago, she ripped up a picture of the Pope on live TV, and that was a big deal. Everybody was real upset. She was vindicated in that. Because it wouldn't be long after that all of the terrible things that the Catholic Church has been doing for decades finally came out, you know, and we started to actually have some movement forward in terms of justice. And I think that understanding, you know, that all of these organizations unfortunately seem to fall into this corrupt space. And I think the reason that's because, first off, it just in case anybody, you know, isn't aware, like, it's not just the Catholic Church. It's not. Recently, the Methodist Church came out with a list. The Baptist Church came out with a list. The Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the Presbyterians, the Anglicans. I can keep listing because it's every single one of them. It's every single one of them, because there is something inherent about the ideology that breeds and perpetuates a space that allows for this terrible stuff to continue. That's just inherent in the ideology, and that's what I fight against. And so I think there has been a beautiful you know, framework that has been set up over the last handful of decades that people can finally get access to in a way that didn't exist 20 years ago. Even when I was a kid, which wasn't that long ago, it's like the connectivity that we had then compared to now is just light years beyond, you know? And so with that, I think as long as we keep shouting about it, as long as we keep, I mean, we're finally in a space where more people that I talk to at least have doubts about Mother Teresa's, sanctimonious, behavior and stuff. Whereas again, when I was a child, she was constantly touted as this amazing
revered,
person.
I mean.
Right. And finally people are, coming around to this and being like, oh my gosh, the wool was completely pulled over our eyes. She was actively engaged in harm and suffering on a regular basis and just took in money hand over fist. And it was absolutely, honestly, when you look back at her record, it's atrocious. But we were in a space just 10 years ago where even saying that would get you kicked out of, agnostic and atheist circles. Like there were people that were like, look, I hate the Catholic Church, but, don't be talking about Teresa like that. But now, because of the fact that we can access this information so regularly, and the youngest generation right now is really, really good at it. They're really, really good. And they are, for whatever reason, they are more socially minded and socially active. And that's amazing. I think that's phenomenal. And my hope is that, again, this is coming from a place of critical thinking, because if not, I worry that what happens is we get fixated on an idea that in the broad sense is good, right? In the broad sense does, promote well-being and increase it around the world. But if we don't have good critical thinking, what happens is we get focused in on something and we lock in and we forget about all of the other harm that could potentially come from certain actions. So again, go ahead.
And also, if kids aren't trained, these youngins, I'm a teacher. I don't know if you know, but I'm a teacher. I work with 11, 12 to 16-year-olds. And if we don't train them in critical thinking skills, then the risk is that they will replace one kind of woo with another kind of woo.
Yep, 100%.
So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And then I just wanted to clarify. So I'm a mother, and my name is Tasha. I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not that woman. I'm not her. I'm not related. There's no connection. She was evil.
Right.
She was evil. Okay. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Wait a minute. Wasn't she on track to become a saint?
Oh yeah.
Where's that process at the moment? Because
I don't know exactly where they are in that.
Deified.
Yeah, I will say that process is absolutely absurd on so many levels, in my opinion. They go look it up, folks. Again, this isn't coming from me. This is coming from the Catholic Church themselves. They actually have a group of people who their entire job is to go check miracles around the world. And they look at some of them and they go, that's not a miracle. And then they look at others and go, that's a miracle. I don't know what the criteria is for deciding that, but they do. And you have to have, at least two confirmed miracles, to then become like a saint. And so, for instance, I could be mistaken on this one, but I'm pretty sure one of the miracles they attribute to Mother Teresa, because that's the first step, is you got to have miracles that we signed off on. One of them is a lady who had never met Mother Teresa, okay, had never spoken with the chick, just loved her work because, like the rest of us, was fooled about her terrible suffering that she inflicted on people. But she took a picture of Mother Teresa and put it to her chest every day for 5 years. And also, I guess, technically went to the hospital to get treatment for the tumor. But whatever, we'll just forget that shit. But she put this picture of Mother Teresa to her chest, and eventually the tumor disappeared. And so that's the miracle that they attribute to Mother Teresa. That's the miracle. It blows my mind.
how can you doubt that? I mean, it
It's,
makes so much.
it's
I mean,
so
really,
logical.
come
I mean,
on.
there were such strict controls, and
I know,
such
I
strict
know.
controls with
I
this
mean,
trial.
they went and talked with the lady a decade after. I mean, there's no way she could have gotten anything wrong. Like, for instance, going to the hospital for chemotherapy or anything. There's no way she could have forgotten that. Like,
You're just a cynic.
that's
Don't
what
be
it is.
so
That's what it is. I'm just looking to find a way to destroy people's faith and magic in
It's
the world.
because you love your sin.
That's it.
That's
I
why.
just want to be a sinner.
You just want to sin.
It's
got
if
nothing
only.
to do with all this evidence nonsense.
That's right.
You're going evidence the whole fucking day, but all you want to do is sin.
That's right, honestly. And it's not even my fault, I blame Eve. Had she not given that apple to Adam, I wouldn't have this inherent desire to sin. I'm sorry. It's just the case. What can you do? Talking snakes, eating apples. It's what it is.
Really? I mean, come on. Okay, but you said something about the younger generation, and I'm hoping that we can get them to withhold their money from religious organizations, because I think that might be the death knell.
Yeah.
If we can just get people to stop giving money to the churches, then I mean, we don't even have to tax them. If we can just get people to say, what am I paying for? Why do I have to give my hard-earned money to pay the salary of somebody who's, I don't know, not really doing much?
Right.
So that's, if we can, so get your mates, get your little buddies, your youngsters, and get them to stop giving money to the church.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that is it. That is huge for sure. Just the continued support in that way. I get it. If you were raised Catholic, like I get it. It's kind of just in your history. There's a culture there. But if you're still giving money to the Catholic Church, you are supporting the abuse of children. Like
any church, not only the Catholic Church. I mean, I grew up in the Reformed tradition, and so you'd have what they were called the direct translation is your contribution, and you had to give a monthly 10%, your tithing. It's a tithe, and you have to give that to the church to maintain the buildings, to pay the minister's salary, etc., etc. And after every service, there'd be 2 collection events. One where the deacon would come by each pew, and you have to put in money, and then there'd be one by the door. So maybe I can just tell this funny story.
Come give me some money.
Except that it's not done like that. It's like, pay up, bro.
It's an obligation. You have to pay.
If only they came with that attitude. It's not as if they come with, please.
I still remember my mother used to, before we went to church, she used to always put like a 5 rand in my pocket, and I always looked for some way to actually make change.
Could use a couple of bucks back here.
So I can pretend to put some money in, because she watches me like a hawk.
I would never have
that.
The
other money is fine.
I was a good Christian girl, but I can tell you this funny story. So when I was a student, my folks relocated to another town, and it was quite far away from the university that I studied at. So I think I only went there twice during the long school break. And once I was there, and I actually went to church with my family. And I had a note, a 20 rand or 10 rand note at that stage. So we're sitting in the pews, and the deacon hands the little bag to put the money. It was actually a plate, a wooden plate, the collection plate. And he hands it to the person sitting at the edge of the pew, and then it gets handed down. And as I put my 10 rand note in the collection plate, and then I sort of just glance over and I see, oh, there's another collection at the door, and I only have this 10 rand note. But by now, the collection plate has gone about 3 people beyond me, and I tend to be quite impulsive, and I actually leaned over and said, "I need change," and I grabbed the to the embarrassment of my mom and dad. I mean, they were so embarrassed by this daughter of theirs, and I was still religious at that time. I just have to say, I didn't. It was just on impulse, because I couldn't bear the thought of walking out of the church and not putting something in the second collection plate, you know.
Yeah.
So
but they get filthy rich, these pastors. I mean, I had a look at some stats the other day, and it's obscene the amount of wealth that they've accumulated, especially in the States. There's some of these people who are multi-millionaires.
Mm-hmm. The church that Joel Osteen runs, not terribly long ago, I think at this point it's probably getting close to a year when this news story came out, but not terribly long ago, had a couple of plumbers that they contracted because there was a problem with one of their bathrooms. And as the plumbers are, you know, going about their business, fixing pipes and recognizing, oh snap, we're going to have to break into this wall here so that we can get at the pipes behind it, you know? Yeah. And funny enough, when they broke through that wall, somewhere near $400,000 in cash started falling out, cash and personal checks. And you know, the good news is, this is the great news, okay, is that, you know, police were called to investigate it, right? As one would do when there is $400,000 in cash just randomly found, let's say in your house or a place of work or whatever. But here's the funny part. See, the police just left all the money there because they had no cause to take it. There was technically, at the time at least, no evidence of any crime or any. See, it's not illegal to just have droves of cash on your person necessarily. Now, again, I can't make any conclusions from this, folks. Okay. I wouldn't dare try to, you know, impugn somebody's character or anything, but it is quite interesting that like a year or so before this cash was discovered, hidden in the wall or in the wall. I guess we don't know that it was purposefully hidden.
It just,
right.
It was a miracle.
It was an accident. Right. The Lord was blessing us.
It was a generous builder.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But funny enough, the budget for this church mentioned about a year or so before this cash was discovered. It mentioned that, like, I don't know, a few $100,000 had just gone missing. There was just a hole in the budget somewhere. Yeah, I know, it's strange. It was terrible. It would be an absolute tragedy for such an organization to lose so much money and not be able to account for it in any way whatsoever. And then for years to go by and for them to find that money. I mean, what a blessing, what a miracle. It couldn't be anything untoward or unethical, like, for instance, them purposefully taking all that money off their books and saying that it was lost or stolen so that they could get better tax benefits and retain more of the money that they've taken from people. Or it wouldn't possibly be anything like that, you know, because they're good, holy, righteous, upstanding fellers over there at Joel Osteen's church. So yeah, just a weird.
He strikes me as a lizard person, you know. Like if I had to go for a conspiracy, my conspiracy of the day is that Joel Osteen is a reptilian.
Yeah. He's slimy, all right. That's for sure. Didn't want to open up the doors to his church to let people come in and sleep for a while after. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And now he did eventually. But what was funny was he had to be kind of cajoled into doing this. You know, you would think a man of God would recognize the situation and be like,
I was just going to say, you know, really, you insinuating all sorts of unpleasant things. the money was being kept in the wall to feed all the hungry
That's right.
and homeless.
That makes sense.
Right,
honestly,
right.
yeah.
That's why it was
a premonition that you had to stash money.
I'll need
the
this a
hurricane
few years
victims.
from now. Right, right. That's.
Absolutely. I mean,
I appreciate that. You know, that is a very charitable view on your part there, Tasha.
just call me the
Yeah,
Holy
amazing.
Mother Teresa for now. When I talk such bullshit.
Amazing.
Oh
Yeah, it's our, we sort of like shot our bolt on this, and we're running up on an hour of your time. I could go for much longer, but in closing, again, I just want to thank you for being so generous with your time, for coming to meet with us, and where can people find you on social media if anybody wants to follow you, if you have anything to plug?
Yeah, so if you go to Twitter or Facebook or YouTube and you just type in Secular Rarity, you can find me. I'll send you my link tree if you want.
Yeah,
you can
I'll
throw
put
it in the description.
Yeah.
I don't have like my own content. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love that. Oh, please take a picture of that and send it to me at least. I would love that.
That's my doodle.
Yeah, thank you. That is gorgeous.
Tasha doodles when she's on streams.
I love that. Yeah, please send me that. But I don't make my own content really. I'm on other people's channels and hanging out there and stuff. So you can find me sometimes on the Atheist Experience. I'm not on today, but I think I'm on in like a couple of weeks. And then every Wednesday at 10 p.m. U.S. Central Time, myself and Armin Navabi on the Atheist Republic main channel in English, we break down. We've been focusing in on a lot of the Islamic apologist stuff, the real ridiculous ones that get out there and beat their chest and yell stupid things. So that's always fun. Those two places you can find me. Actually, tonight I'll be on Skeptic Haven's call-in show. So that starts at 7 p.m. Central. I'll be doing that with Sunny Shell. I love Sunny, so I'm excited to be back with her. But yeah, honestly, like there's a good chance that if you just turn on the YouTubes at any point in time, you're gonna see my dumb face somewhere.
The mold in the fridge.
That's right. That's right. I just bounce around everywhere. So.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, incredible, man. Like I said, I did. A while ago, I said to myself, we got to get this guy on our show.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So thank you very much for your time. Tasha, any last words?
Yes, I am basically going because I'm getting ready for my next show. It's Free Thought Hour, Views on the News. Can I find you on Facebook to send you the pic, or do I have to, because of your doodle, your special holy doodle made by me? Thank you so much for your time. I loved it. And good luck with everything you're doing. And I will send you the pic. If I can't do it on Facebook, I'll send it via Dean. Thank you so much. I greet you. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Oh, fuck. Where's my thing? Yeah. Sorry.